If Freedom Fails. We'd like to take you on a visit to a town that doesn't exist. A town we call Springfield, USA. We'd like to show you how things would be in any American town if communism took over. This is the story of a poet of the people. The story of what happens to all creative writing under a communist regime. The story is called The Monkey's Cage.
Well, are you sure Ramsey hasn't been there tonight? Okay.
Have him call us.
Tell him to call the magazine if he shows up.
No luck?
No, his brother hasn't seen him.
Have you tried his house?
6 times. His landlady threatens to call the cops if I bother her again.
Oh, this is ridiculous. A man doesn't go away without leaving a message. Somebody must know where he is.
Can't we hold off his story until next month's issue of the Digest?
How? We've announced it for this issue, and Bromfield has already done the drawings for it. This isn't like Ramsey. He's always taken his work seriously.
Yeah, and sometimes he takes it a little too seriously.
Huh? What do you mean?
Did you ever hear him sound off when he's had a couple of drinks?
No.
Well, I have. Just the other night, as a matter of fact. We stopped in at the Blue Moon for a nightcap. One drink led to another, and before I could stop him, Ramsey started popping off about the curse of communism.
That's it.
What?
Look, Bennett, it's been 5 years since the communists took over our country.
You think they picked up Ramsey?
When somebody disappears these days, he hasn't gone to the mountains for a vacation.
Yeah.
There's one chance. Call the Blue Moon and ask Joe if he's seen Ramsey lately.
Well, he saw him the other night.
Ask him if he's seen Ramsey since then.
Okay, but I don't think it'll do any good.
It's a chance.
Hello, Blue Moon Cafe.
Hello, Joe.
Yeah?
This is Gil Bennett, Springfield Digest.
Oh, hello, Mr. Bennett.
Joe, have you seen Mr. Ramsey today?
Or yesterday.
Or yesterday?
No, I haven't.
Hasn't been in at all?
No, I haven't seen him for quite a while.
Well, you saw him the other night.
I don't remember.
He was standing at the bar with me.
Sorry, I don't remember.
Now, just a second. I know I was there with Ramsey. And I also know we talked to you. And you talked to us. You even told Ramsey he was drinking too much. Do you remember that?
No, and you'd better forget it.
Look, Joe.
Gotta hang up customers.
Hello, Joe! Joe! Hung up.
Of course. He's afraid to say anything.
And they've really got Ramsey.
Yeah. But only Commissar Yeager and his brain trust know what's happened to him. The other night was just a topper. They've probably tailed him for weeks, months. They'll be gunning for all of us before they're through. Yes, they'll get everybody who has any influence in the people's way of thinking. And where's a better place to start than with a literary magazine? They've stopped Ramsey from talking and writing. Who's next is anybody's guess.
What about Lambert?
Charles?
Well, his poetry is read by millions.
Not in 100 years would they find anything in his poetry which could even vaguely be interpreted as anti-communistic.
You never can tell.
I know what I'm talking about. Why, for years, Charles Lambert has been writing about typical Americana, about the people. Even when he won the Pulitzer Award and went to England for 8 years, he still wrote about the things he remembered here in America. No, they'd never touch anybody like Charles Lambert. He's one man who's safe.
Charles, dear.
Judith, come in. I didn't hear you. The rain.
It's late, dear. Hadn't you better come to bed?
I'm almost finished.
Oh, your poem for the Springfield Digest?
Yes. I'll read you what I have. I called it The Wheel of Life.
Good title.
These things are real. The rain that soaks the ground. The soil that grows alfalfa, grain, and corn. The crops that feed the cattle and the pigs. The food that fills our bellies gives us life. A fleeting thought, a moment at a time. These things are real, and they are all that count. These things are free. A lover's tender kiss, a baby's smile, the thought, this child is mine, the firm and honest handshake of a friend, the robin's song, the apple trees in bloom, the beauty of the autumn's changing hues. These things are free, and so remember them. That's all I have so far.
Oh, I like it. It's you remembering all those years back on your father's farm in Iowa.
Is it that obvious in autobiography?
Well, when a woman is married to the same man for 35 years, there's little about him she doesn't know.
Has it been that long?
35 next Christmas.
I'd lost track. I've lost track of a lot of things recently.
We all have, dear.
So unbelievable, Judith. In so short a time to have lost so much. 5 years. It won't be long before every last suggestion of American democracy will be wiped out. Now that the communists have taken over.
Oh, you're tired, dear. Why don't you come to bed?
I will. In a little while. I want to finish my work so I can take it to the digest in the morning.
Well, all right, but don't be too long.
I won't. Good night.
Good night, dear. Oh, dear, I do hope the storm will be over soon. You never know when that lightning is going to strike.
Good morning, Russ.
Oh, Charles, come in.
Here's my latest effort for the digest.
Written in your usual earthy style, of course.
Well, decide that for yourself. After all, you're the editor of this magazine.
Never been a time I didn't like your stuff?
No, but times have changed, my friend.
Yes, they have.
What's wrong?
Commissar Yeager and the Union of Soviet American Writers insisted that I put a couple of loyal party members on staff to be sure we keep our literary noses clean. Outside of that, all's right with the world. Let's see what you've written.
Judith insists it's my autobiography in verse.
These things are real. The rain that soaks the ground, soil that grows alfalfa, grain, corn.
I'm positive it's innocuous enough to be acceptable, even to the administration of the Union of Soviet American Writers.
This is good.
Think there's anything in it that might offend Commissar Yeager?
Can't see anything. It's a poem about the people. That should please him. What's so funny?
Oh, I was just wondering what Yeager's mob would do to some of our other American poets who wrote about the people. Emerson, Walt Whitman, Sandburg. I remember one of Sandburg's poems. The strong men keep coming on. They go down shot, hanged, sick, broken. They live on fighting, sighing, lucky as plungers, the strong mothers pulling them on, the strong mothers pulling them from a dark sea, a great prairie, a long mountain. Call hallelujah, call amen, call deep thanks. The strong men keep coming on.
If Sandburg wrote that today, they'd boil him in oil for advocating the overthrow of communist rule in America.
Excuse me, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, what is it, Fred?
Commissar Yeager would like to speak with you.
Yeager?
Tell him to come in.
Yes, sir, Mr. Taylor.
Yeager here? Think it means trouble?
No, I don't think so. Probably just on a tour of inspection.
Well, I'm leaving. Mr. Yeager and I have nothing in common.
I'll let you know what happens.
Bye. Bye, Russ.
Bye.
Oh, hello, Yeager.
Commissar Yeager, Lambert.
Oh, yes, of course. Sorry. See you later, Russ.
Right. Come in, Commissar.
I see Lambert hasn't learned yet that we don't accept familiarity between the workers and the administration.
Sit down.
Thank you.
You'll have to forgive him, Commissar. Those poets live in a world of their own.
Yes. That's what I want to talk to you about.
Oh?
The administration isn't happy with some of the writing in the Springfield Digest.
But we haven't printed...
You are popularizing the works of writers whose literary and political thoughts conflict with ours. Your writers have forgotten that the first aim of Soviet American culture is the education of the people to party doctrine and policy.
Where do our writers conflict?
They concern themselves with a form of writing that is empty and foreign to the way in which we are educating the Soviet American people. This Charles Lambert is a good example. His verses are saturated with a spirit of pessimism and melancholy.
But he writes about the people. His poetry is simple, honest, and most certainly not far into the communist line of thought. Here, this is his latest poem. Read it for yourself.
The wheel of life.
Yes, he writes about things we see around us, things which are part of our everyday lives.
This is what you would call art for art's sake.
Yes, I would.
It's filled with words which mean nothing. It speaks of personal pleasures and property which belongs to the individual. Here, A baby's smile. The thought, this child is mine. Under the Soviet American government, Taylor, the children belong to the state.
But
You claim me rights about the people. But this poem, filled with individualistic thinking, would bring harm to the cause of the education of our Soviet American youth. We can't accept it. Do you understand?
Yes.
The idealistic years of your American literature are over. Finished. You are now living in the true democracy. It is evident that you have been publishing worthless works because you were afraid of offending a friend. But from now on, the Springfield Digest will accept no more pap like this work of Lambert's. From now on, all your writers will conform to the party line. Our literature cannot have interests other than the interests of the state and the people.
The people, yes.
Have I made myself clear?
Only too clear, Commissar Yeager.
Why, Russell.
Hello, Judith.
What are you doing here this time of day?
Is Charles home?
Yes, I'll call him. Charles? Oh, Charles?
Yes?
Russell Taylor is here.
Russ? Be right there.
He'll be right down.
Thanks.
You care for a cup of tea?
No,
Or
thanks.
coffee?
Nothing, thanks, nothing.
Something's wrong.
Yes.
What is it?
Wait till Charles comes down.
Didn't you like his poem?
Of course I did.
I thought it was good. It's filled with the things he believes in.
I know.
Well, if you like the poem, I don't see what...
I wasn't expecting to see you quite so soon. You see, Judith, he's what I call a real friend. Not only does he buy practically everything I write, but he also brings me my check personally.
Charles, I'd like to talk to you, seriously.
What is it?
I didn't bring your check. As a matter of fact, there isn't going to be a check this time.
Why, what do you mean?
But you said you liked Charles' poem.
Sit down, both of you. Sit down. Commissar Yeager delivered an ultimatum from the Union of Soviet American Writers this afternoon.
What?
It affects all the contributors to the Digest, particularly you, Charles.
Why, Charles, he hasn't written anything anti-communistic.
No, he hasn't, no. Neither has he written anything to advance the teaching of Soviet American literature to the youth of this country.
Yeager said that?
We said a lot more. He claims your work is idealistic pap, art for art's sake, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That you've forgotten the primary purpose of Soviet American culture is to educate the people to a party doctrine and policy.
Soviet American culture? Creeping paralysis would be more like it.
Charles!
What else did the noble commissar have to say?
The Digest is to discontinue publishing any works marked by ideological and political neutrality and alien to Soviet American literature.
What does that mean?
It means, my dear, that the personal liberty we've been enjoying is being seriously threatened.
From now on, Charles and all the other writers will have to concern themselves with spreading Soviet culture in their writing and forget anything and everything which even suggests our dead democracy.
The beginning and the end.
Well, that's impossible. How can they expect Charles to spread Soviet culture when he's an American poet?
Judith, there's no longer any such thing as an American poet. A man is either a Soviet American poet writing to further the educational aims of the Central Committee in Washington, or he's nothing. And an editor of a literary magazine must reject his work as being unsuitable.
You mean you're going to change the policy of the Digest just like that?
Yes.
Hey, you can't.
What choice do I have?
We're the last straw the people can cling to. We let the Central Committee tell us what to write and how to think, then we'll be a completely lost nation. But if we can hold out against them, there's still hope.
Just how do you think we could accomplish that? You can't reason with them. There's no such thing as a compromise. With them, it's all take and no give.
There's no compromise with me either.
Charles, you're just being stubborn. The communists aren't asking you to give up your writing altogether.
Aren't they?
I'm certain they'd allow you to continue writing if you, just temper your writing. Slant it just a little in their direction.
Do you honestly think I could do that?
I don't see why not.
Well, I can't.
Charles!
I can't lead the people into believing something false or into accepting the tinselled promises of the communist ideologies. I can't do it, Judith. For 35 years, you watched me write. You've read what I wrote. You also know that I've never written anything which even vaguely suggested the destruction of democracy. How can you expect me to do that now?
Charles, you have no other choice.
Don't I? I know the people, Judith. I know what they once believed in and fought for. And I know that we'd still have those things the people believed in if we'd all fought just a little harder. Maybe I am stubborn, but I can never write a single word the way the communists wanted me to and still remain faithful to the people or to myself.
Oh, Charles. Russell, see what you can do. See if you can't talk some of this stubbornness out of him.
I'm not so sure I want to, Judith.
What? But, Russell,
You see, Charles has made me realize that a drowning man doesn't stop swimming.
What?
He keeps trying to save himself until there's no breath left in him. We've been friends for a good many years, Charles. I couldn't desert you now and live with my conscience.
Thank you, Russ.
What are you going to do, Russell?
If this husband of yours is so determined on fighting Commissar Yeager and his masterminds, he'll need some help, and I'm going to try to give it to him. I don't know how far we'll get, but at least we'll be doing what we both believe in.
You are listening to The Monkey's Cage, a story of the way things could be if communism took over. A picture of what life would be like under a communist regime in an ordinary American town. A town we call Springfield, USA.
Taylor, I want to talk to you.
Certainly, Commissar Yeager. Sit down, sit down.
This isn't a friendly visit.
No?
Here. I've just finished reading the latest issue of the Digest.
I hope it met with the approval of the Union Committee.
It did not.
I'm sorry. What exactly displeased you?
Charles Lambert's poem.
A visit to the zoo? But why should that displease you? It's just a description of a group of children touring the zoo and their reactions.
Is that all it is?
Yes. Since the primary aim of Soviet American literature is to educate the youth of our country, Lambert felt that a dissertation on a zoo might be an entertaining source of information. A description of the animals, their habits, their homes.
Yes, I know all that.
It's a simple little poem. It was written to amuse, not to offend anyone, Commissar.
Lambert is a clever writer, Taylor.
Yes, he
But
is.
not clever enough. For the past several months, his aims have become much too clear. He insists he's a poet of the people, writing for the people. But that's a lie. He depicts the Soviet American people as loafers, as stupid and crude. He's incapable of finding in the life of the Soviet American people one positive thing, one positive figure. He continually mocks at Soviet American life, Soviet American institutions. Yes, even the very people he claims to be writing for.
That's not so, Commissar. He has nothing but the interest of the party at heart. He's a faithful supporter of the advancement of Soviet American literature.
I don't believe that.
But it's true.
Then how do you explain his description of the monkey's cage in A Trip to the Zoo?
Explain?
It's a deliberately deformed and vulgar caricature of the life of the Soviet American people, written in order to insert into the mouth of a monkey the poisonous anti-Soviet maxiom that it is better to live in a zoo than at liberty, and that it is easier to breathe in a cage than among Soviet American people.
You actually think that's what he meant?
I know that's what he meant.
Oh, but if you can read thoughts like that into Lambert's words, how is he to know what to write? And how am I to know what I can or cannot publish in the Digest?
You won't have to worry about that, Taylor.
What do you mean?
You're no longer the editor of the Digest.
Of course.
You were told to change the policy of your magazine, but apparently you've been unable to do that. So, for the purpose of introducing the necessary order into the work of the editorial office of the Digest and improving the material appearing in its pages, the Central Committee has appointed a new editor-in-chief and an editorial board.
I understand. And Charles Lambert?
Lambert has an appointment to appear before the committee at 3 o'clock.
What are you going to do to him?
Do? We're not going to do anything. We'd just like to ask him a few questions, that's all.
You'll never get him to propagandize his writing.
He might be convinced.
Never.
Nikolai Lenin once said that the Soviet regime rested on a balance of coercion and persuasion. I hope Lambert can be persuaded.
You will be quiet, comrades.
I asked for quiet. Mr. Lambert.
Yes? Commissar Jaeger?
Lambert, you've been called before the committee to explain why you have refused to recognize the aims of the Union of Soviet American Writers, as stated in the Union's charter.
I have nothing to explain.
We have found no trace of party doctrine or policy in any of your writings. How do you explain that?
I've written nothing either for or against the party.
Then you admit you write for the undermining of Soviet American literature.
I don't write to undermine anything. I write for the people.
The people. I've heard you called the poet of the people. But since it's obvious that you write only because you are well paid for your writing, what can you really know about the people and the way they live?
What do I know about the people? To begin with, I never finished school. When I was 13, I drove a milk wagon. By the time I was 19, I'd been a porter in a barber shop, a scene shifter in a cheap theater, a truck driver for a brickyard, a dishwasher in a Denver hotel, and a farmhand in Iowa. I worked till my hands were so blistered I couldn't close them. And I can remember nights when I was so tired I couldn't sleep. Yes, I know the people, Commissar Jaeger, because I was one of them. And we once had a government in Washington where the representatives of the people made laws for the good of the people. Not laws which destroyed their wills and turned them into a nation of cowed and browbeaten slaves.
You have said enough.
I haven't begun to talk. You wanted me to explain why I refused to recognize the aims of the Union of Soviet American Writers. I'll tell you why. You accuse me and the others of specializing in the writing of shallow and empty works, of including subtle propaganda which is designed to confuse and poison the minds of our youth. You accuse our editors of publishing works which are alien to the realities of contemporary life. I agree that these accusations should be made, but they should be made by us. We should accuse you of these things, which you are doing with your enlightened program of communist lies.
Lambert, you will sit down.
You told us that the task of the American Soviet literature is to aid the state, to educate the youth correctly, to rear a new generation strong and vigorous, believing in the cause of freedom, fearing no obstacles to truth. This is also my task, but I'll bring them the real truth, the truth they can believe in as long as they live.
That will be all for the present, Lambert. You will be sent home under guard until the committee has made its decision.
Looks like we're going to have an early spring, Charles. There's a robin out there in the apple tree.
I hear.
Charles.
Yes, dear?
Charles, what will they do to you?
We'll know soon enough.
Oh, Charles.
Please, dear. Russell.
Yes?
Close the window.
All right.
Why did you have to say what you did? Why did you have to say anything?
He said only what he believed, Judith.
And by saying it, he has destroyed himself.
Would you have had me destroy my soul instead?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
If I can no longer give people something to believe in, to hold on to, there's nothing left.
Don't say that.
The Central Committee has already begun to circulate propaganda among the people, telling them that my poetry has been a mockery, that the words I've written actually picture them as uncouth, stupid, narrow-minded, that I wrote only for personal glory.
But that's not true.
The people will believe
They
it.
can't.
I'm afraid they will, Judith.
Oh.
Well, Russell, we tried.
Yes.
Will you take this?
What is it?
My epitaph.
By what odd chance did I go shouting in my songs that I am a friend of the people? My poems are no longer needed here. And I, too, by your leave, I am no longer needed. Bloom, youth, grow healthy in your bodies. You have another life, a new refrain. But I go on alone to the unknown country, my rebel soul forever humbled.
Charles.
I'll answer. Very well. Yes, right away. The committee is ready to give its decision.
Lambert, you stand accused not only of refusing to write according to party policy, but for treasonable utterance against the Central Committee of the All-Union Soviet American Party. Ordinarily, such action is punishable by death or banishment. But in your case, we are making an exception. You're a brilliant writer, Lambert. It's unfortunate that your writings have been filled with words which are empty, unreal. However, it is the feeling of the committee that in time you may still be valuable to us as a writer.
Never.
Never is a long time. You may change your mind. Until you do, you will continue writing.
What?
Oh, not poetry, you understand.
What then?
You have insisted you are a poet of the people, that you are one of the people. Very well. Since you feel it is easier to breathe in a cage than among loyal party members, you will be given your own little office, a desk and a chair. And as the days go by, the months, the years, your job will be to write about the people you love. But you won't write about the things that bring them life. No. You will write their death notices. Hereafter, you will be in charge of the Springfield Digest obituary column. The interview is ended.
You have just heard a story of what happens to a poet under a communist regime. You think this could not happen? It did happen when the communists took over their own country, Russia. It did happen in 1925 when the 30-year-old poet Sergei Yesenin committed suicide. It was his epitaph which ended, "But I go on alone to the unknown country, my rebel soul forever humbled." It did happen in 1936 when Maxim Gorky, the novelist, was poisoned. And it did happen in 1958 when Boris Pasternak was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. Because communist leaders objected to some of the ideas in his novel, Dr. Zhivago, Pasternak was reviled, expelled from the Soviet Writers' Union, and forced to decline the Nobel Prize. You've been listening to If Freedom Failed, starring Walter Kingsford as Charles Lambert in The Monkey's Cage. Music was composed by Earl Lawrence, with musical direction by Michel Perrier. The Monkey's Cage was written for If Freedom Failed by Milton Kahn, produced and directed by Robert M. Young. Sergeant Lloyd Ayers speaking. This program has come to you through the worldwide facilities of the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.